In the House of Commons, newly elected Labour MP Marcus Campbell Savers boldly opposes his party's contentious decision to introduce an inheritance tax on farmers. In a compelling speech, he accuses the party of betraying voters by breaking a key campaign promise to reject such policies. Marcus Campbell Savers has sparked significant debate in Parliament by openly challenging his party's actions, holding them accountable for their false assurances, and standing up for the farming community. Let's dive into his speech and analyze its impact.
Marcus Campbell Savers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've spent the last few weeks speaking with farmers in Penrith and Solway, trying to understand the full impact of the inheritance tax proposals, knowing that I have months left to engage DEFRA and the Treasury and seek important amendments. And, let me be clear, if today was the real vote, I would vote against the government's plans. I'm no rebel, I'm a moderate. But during the election, I read what I thought were assurances from my party that we had no plans to introduce changes to APR. On this basis, I reassured farmers in my constituency that we would not. Now, I simply am not prepared to break my word. I'm told that there is no Labour MP in the country with as many farms as I do in Penrith and Solway, and I hope my colleagues will understand my feelings on this.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I commend my near neighbour, the member for Penrith and Solway, on his very brave contribution. It's very hard to come to this chamber and tell the truth when the pressure from the whips and the party is to defend the government at all costs. And he made it absolutely clear that this measure will have a devastating effect on farmers and the farming industry in his constituency if it goes through as currently set out.
Marcus Campbell Savers has positioned himself as a controversial figure within the Labour Party by openly opposing its policy to introduce inheritance tax on farmers. In a bold speech at the House of Commons, he expressed his dissatisfaction with the plan, even stating that he would vote against the government's proposal if a vote were held immediately. This highlights a profound disagreement between him and the party's leadership and serves as an admission that Labour has failed to uphold its campaign promises. His revelation that he had personally assured farmers in his constituency that no changes would be made to APR further damages the party's credibility, as it exposes a clear breach of trust and a lack of transparency in its political commitments. This move not only undermines Campbell Savers' own standing, but also inflicts significant harm on his party. In the face of pressure from party whips and leadership to defend government policies at all costs, his public opposition is tantamount to challenging the authority of his own party. Furthermore, it has drawn attention from political opponents like David Mundell, who seized the opportunity to praise Campbell Savers' courage while indirectly criticizing Labour's flawed policies. Although Campbell Savers' actions may stem from personal integrity, they have effectively become a tool for opponents and have heightened public skepticism about Labour's unity and direction. Fundamentally, Campbell Savers' speech can be seen as a form of political self-sabotage. It not only erodes trust among his colleagues, but also weakens voter confidence in Labour on key issues. In an already unstable political climate, his actions may be perceived as a strategic misstep, jeopardizing his personal career and further tarnishing Labour's overall reputation. Such internal dissent, while possibly well-intentioned, risks amplifying the party's vulnerabilities at a time when unity and consistency are critical for its success. Now let's move on to the next story. Minister Jess Phillips was left embarrassed after the Deputy Speaker accused the Labour Party of hypocrisy, highlighting inconsistencies in its policy stance. The sharp rebuke has increased scrutiny of the Labour Party's credibility and consistency. Have a watch.
Before I call the Minister to make a statement, I am sorry once again to have to remind ministers of the requirement that major new policy announcements should be made in this House in the first instance and not to the media. This afternoon's statement has already been the subject of very extensive coverage in the print and broadcast media. Honourable and right honourable members on the government benches were quick to criticise ministers in the previous government for this kind of behaviour. Mr Speaker has made it clear that he intends to hold them to the same high standard that now they are in government. The Home Office seems to have a particular problem with making media announcements before ministers come to make statements to the House. Mr Speaker will be writing to the Prime Minister to remind him of the rules. I would also remind the Home Secretary that it is open to Mr Speaker to grant an urgent question on any subject on any day. Minister Jess Phillips.
First and foremost, I must apologise on behalf of myself and the government, and I am sure that her words today, through Mr Speaker, have been heard by all.
The incident involving the Deputy Speaker's sharp rebuke to the government over procedural failings marks yet another low point in the current administration's handling of its responsibilities. Once again, ministers have blatantly disregarded the fundamental principle that significant policy announcements should be made in Parliament before being shared with the media. This failure not only undermines the integrity of the parliamentary process, but also demonstrates a concerning level of disrespect for the institution and its members. The Deputy Speaker's remarks highlight a pattern of behaviour, particularly within the Home Office, that suggests a troubling indifference to parliamentary standards and accountability.
What makes this episode even more egregious is the hypocrisy it exposes.
Members of the current government, while in opposition, were quick to chastise their predecessors for similar conduct. Yet now, in power, they appear no less willing to flout the same rules they once demanded be upheld. This duplicity erodes trust in the government's commitment to transparency and good governance, casting doubt on its ability to lead with integrity. The Deputy Speaker's statement, which included a pointed warning that Mr. Speaker himself would be contacting the Prime Minister about this recurring issue, underscores the gravity of the situation. The fact that it has reached the level of formal written warnings is indicative of a systemic problem within the administration, a disregard for parliamentary procedure that cannot be easily excused as an oversight. Minister Jess Phillips' apology, while necessary, does little to mitigate the damage. Her vague and perfunctory remarks, which seemed more focused on appeasing the Deputy Speaker than addressing the root cause of the issue, fell flat. The absence of a substantive plan to prevent further breaches of protocol reflects poorly on the government's ability to self-correct. Instead of taking full responsibility, her apology felt more like an attempt to sidestep accountability while hoping the issue would dissipate without further scrutiny. This incident also raises questions about the Prime Minister's leadership and control over his cabinet. The Deputy Speaker's remarks make it clear that this is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader trend, particularly in the Home Office. Such consistent failings point to a lack of discipline and oversight at the highest levels of government. If the Prime Minister cannot ensure that his ministers adhere to basic parliamentary norms, it casts serious doubt on his ability to maintain control over more complex governance challenges. Ultimately, this episode is a stark reminder of the erosion of trust and standards under the current government. Its repeated disregard for parliamentary rules undermines not just its own credibility, but the integrity of the democratic process as a whole. Without meaningful changes to address these failings, this administration risks further alienating not only Parliament, but the public it claims to serve. Thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts or opinions, feel free to share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more updates, and join us on Telegram for exclusive content and discussions. Your support means a lot.